I want you to learn how to be a systems thinker. There was a book, there was an author, his name was Peter Senge in the early 1980s. He wrote a beautiful book called The Fifth Discipline. And in that he talks about the idea of systems thinking. Systems thinking is when you look at the big picture. For example, if you have morale, if people are unhappy at work, instead of just fixing it, you stand back and you ask yourself, why are they unhappy? What's causing their unhappiness? Systems thinking causes you to sort of step back and look at the big picture. And look for connections and patterns. You know, when you make a management decision, it affects every other decision that you make. It's like dominoes. You push one domino, they all fall. Assumptions. You know, when I was managing, I used to bring all of my people into a room, and I would write down my assumptions on a board. What are assumptions? Assumptions are clearly what you're thinking. So if you were all my team, I would say, here are my assumptions. It's January, let's say. Here are my assumptions. Tech is going to happen soon, I would say that. And then I would also say, we're going to grow the company 10%. We're going to move to a new location. We're going to hire 500 people. I would just list everything I was thinking, and we would have a chance to discuss. So that's part of being a systems thinker, is being open with your communications. Focus on the process. You know, right now, all of you, I assume, have goals at work, right? And to reach those goals, they have to be done by people. But people get things done through process. Life is a process. So what is a process? A process has a start and it has a stop. It has an in and it has an out. It's either a mature process, it's working well, or it's immature, it's new. All of you came to class tonight a certain way. Part of it's behavior, but part of it's the process. You knew how to get here. So systems thinkers think about the process, not about who to blame or what went wrong, but how do we improve the process? One thing you can do tomorrow when you go to tomorrow's Friday, when you go back to work, is look at your objectives and then list all the processes that you have in the organization and see which processes have the biggest influence on which objectives. And you make like a little matrix, right? And then those are the processes that you put people in charge of, that you focus on. Systems thinking also encourages you to look at changing perspective. You know, right now, think about a problem you would like to solve in your life, or maybe at work. You don't have to tell me, but just think about it. Now, the way you go about solving a problem is you think about it right now. I have this problem, how am I going to solve it? But, you know, studies have shown that we use about 10% of our brain capacity. 10%. So when you change your thinking, you increase the potential of your brain capacity, your possibilities. So you don't have to solve a problem from the present. You could say to yourself, I'm going to go back 5 years before this even happened, and I'm going to ask myself, if I had this problem in the future, how would I deal with it? You can go ahead 5 years into the future, and you can turn around and say, all right, now that this problem is solved, how did I solve it? What advice could I send back? You can take on the role of somebody you know and look at you from their perspective. The point is, think about putting on a different pair of glasses every time you try to solve a problem. That's you get a new perspective. I always tell people that, you know, when you're trying to solve a problem, motion changes emotion. Motion changes emotion. So if you have a problem and you're sitting here, walk over here. Take a break, turn this way, you'll solve it differently because you have a different perspective. So systems thinkers practice thinking from different perspectives. So as a manager, before I make a decision, how's it going to affect my people? Well, let me think. If I make this decision, how would it affect them? If I make this decision, how would it affect them? Also, part of being a systems thinker is looking for leverage in the system. So as a leader, you ask yourself, where can I make one or two decisions that will have the biggest effect on everything else? Let me give you another example of systems thinking. Imagine there was a farmer in the field, and he discovered that his crops were dying, right? And he discovered that there was this bug that was eating the crops. So he went out and he bought a pesticide, a chemical, and it killed the crops, and it killed the bug. But then he discovered later it killed another bug that would have killed the bug that was eating the crops. So when you're a systems thinker, you look at the big picture. You're always asking yourself, why is this happening? Instead of how. If there's a problem, how did this happen? No, you ask yourself why. So systems thinking, I just want you to think about it. It's big picture. If you're unhappy at your job, you ask yourself, not how can you fix it, but why are you unhappy? What's causing it? What can you do about it? If you have employees, I'll talk about coaching in a minute, you ask them questions. When you ask a person a question, it causes them to rush to an answer, and that's important. It's part of teaching. I tell managers, if you don't want to be a teacher, don't manage. It's okay to be responsible for your own work. But if you want to be responsible through other people, you have to be a teacher. You have to be a coach. So a couple other points on systems thinking. Many leaders fail when they're not systems thinkers. Every day is a fire drill. Every day is rush without thinking. Every day is over-analysis instead of synthesis. Analysis is when you have a problem. You analyze it, you try to solve it. Synthesis is when you look at all the pieces in the environment and you say, how do they fit together? Right? So let's move on.